Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I had to restart my computer at the very last moment, so I appreciate you all hanging in there and being patient while I got myself sorted out. So today we are going to be talking about how to add photos to your property in your OwnerRez account. We will be going over obviously how to add the photos, also how to set an order for the photos, how to tag the photos with your rooms so that you can set up the rooms tour on certain sites, and also how to exclude specific photos from certain channels. Before we dive into that, I do want to mention that different channels, especially Verbo, for example, have different requirements for photos. So as an example, there's a long list of things that Verbo will not accept. And if you want to see what that list is, you can always go to Google or your other search engine and just search for Verbo photo guidelines. It'll bring you to their help article on this. But some of the biggest mistakes that we see people making with their photos is that Verbo will reject any maps, close-ups of plants, any photo collages, any photos that are in a portrait, like a vertical orientation instead of landscape, horizontal orientation. Verbo does not like those, and it can throw an error. And then also any watermarks and any text of any kind in the photos will be rejected. Airbnb also does not like to see these things, but they handle it a little differently than Verbo does. So just keep this in mind when you're adding photos to your listing and make sure that it meets any of the requirements of the channels that you are listing on. So first, let's talk about how to add photos to a property in OwnerRez. To do that, you'd go into your OwnerRez account and then click on the house icon in the lower left corner to access your properties. And you can click on the property that you want to work on. So for today, I'm going to add photos to my Heaven on Earth property. After you click on that property, you can click on photos here in the left side. And then you can either click this button to upload photos, or if you already have a photo folder open, you can simply drag and drop those photos over that gray box, and the system will start uploading the photos to your property. Once they are at 100%, you can start working on them. So you could add a caption here, and you can assign to a room. This is what we call tagging. You can tag it with a room here. So this is the point in time where it's going to be the easiest for you to add captions and tag your photos. You can always add captions and tag them later on, but this is kind of your opportunity to get them all done at a glance, all in one go. So recommend that you take the time to do that if you can. And you could just put something like pool table for fun game nights. And then you would click assign to room or accessibility amenity. And here you can see that we haven't created any rooms yet in our rooms page, but that's okay because you can actually do it at the same time that you're uploading your photos. So in this case, we're going to add a room, and the type will be game room, and we'll just click add room there. And now it's tagged as the game room. And if we scroll down and we see other pictures of game rooms, I know this looks weird, but these photos are just example photos from different properties. So we have game rooms that look completely different, but just as an example, let's say you had a different angle of the game room, you could now just click here and that game room has already been created, so you can easily choose it there. And you can add more captions. This one we would add probably a deck here. So we would add a room and we can just call it exterior as the general type, and we'll say it's the upper deck. Add that room. And then as you scroll through, you can continue adding captions, assigning to an amenity. Now, a lot of times people have multiple angles of the same space, and so it can feel pretty redundant as you go through and try and create captions for every single room and kind of build that picture for your guests of what they're going to experience at the property. So a trick that I've used for years now is as I start to get reviews for a property, I will actually copy and paste quotes from the guest review and use it as my captions. So you can access your reviews from the Quality Center here in OwnerRez. Obviously, you would need to have reviews already, and you need to be API connected with Airbnb and Vrbo in order for those reviews to be in OwnerRez. But if you're already at that point where your listing's been live for a while, you've started to get some reviews that you can use to augment your captions, you'll be able to click on the Quality Center and then click on the Reviews tab. And then here you can filter for the specific property that you're working on to view all the reviews for that property. Then you can start looking at what the guests have said. So this guest didn't really call out anything too specific, but they did mention that there are some beautiful views. So I'm just going to take this little sentence from the review here, and I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to go back into my captions and find a photo that shows the view. Actually, this one shows it pretty nicely. So we'll just add that little quote there. And then I'm going to put the name of the guest who said this and the year that the month and year that they stayed. And so that can be a nice little trick to help add more captions without feeling like you're saying the same thing over and over again. So once you have added your photos, added your captions, tagged them with the appropriate room. So for example, here we would create another room here and add it as the living room. And then I want to just do a bedroom as an example. So just bear with me here. So we would create this one, add a bedroom. When you're adding a bedroom, you need to make sure that you click on the add bed button and put in the number and type of beds in that room. So in this case, we're just going to put a 1 queen bed, and then this is also going to be bedroom 1 and bedroom 1. And then as you go down and you add more and more bedrooms, you get bedroom 2, 3, 4, and so on. So once you've done all of that, you can go ahead and click Save Photos. And now it's still saving. Let's give it a moment. Why did it only save 2 photos? I think I just need to be a little bit more patient. So bear with me here. I'm going to check in a different tab and see what's going on. Looks like maybe I broke it. See what happens. Okay, here we go. So it did save. So just close that tab. All right, so now we have all of our photos. It's grouped by none right here. So when it's grouped by none, you can set the numerical order that you want the photos to appear in. Now, this numerical order will be honored if you have an OwnerRez hosted website. And on some channels, it will be honored as well. But there are certain channels like Vrbo and Google Vacation Rentals that are going to set their own numerical order for your photos no matter what. And unfortunately, it's not something that OwnerRez has control over or you have control over. Vrbo has an AI that tells them the quote unquote best order for the photos. So you're kind of at the mercy of that on your Vrbo listing. But it's still good to set a numerical order. As far as we can tell, Airbnb still honors the numerical order unless you have your rooms tour set up, in which case Airbnb will display your photos room by room. So you'd have all your bedroom 1 photos grouped together and kitchen grouped together, so on and so forth. The numerical order will be honored also, as I mentioned, on your OwnerRez hosted website if you have one. So here it's very simple. If you want to reorder the photos, you can just hold down the mouse and drag that photo to where you want it to appear. And you'll notice that the number for that photo gets changed. So you may want to spend some time doing that when you initially upload your photos. So for instance, maybe we want this game room one to be displayed higher in the photo order. You can just go through and get everything grouped exactly the way you want. And then if you want to see how the rooms tour is looking, you can change the group by to room/amenity. And it'll show you in the general section all the photos that have not been tagged with the room. So that can be a good way to double check to make sure that every photo that should be assigned to a room is. And then down here, you'll see all the rooms grouped together, as I mentioned before. Now, if we go back to the group by none, just because that's kind of what I prefer to use as my default view, we're going to go through and see any photos that might cause errors on Vrbo. So we already know, like, this photo has text. So we already know from our Vrbo photo guidelines that that's going to be a problem for Vrbo. So we can click the pencil icon here and we can choose hide this photo from. And once you're API integrated with Vrbo, Vrbo would show up as a listing site option in this dropdown, and you would select Vrbo there. And that way OwnerRez knows not to try and push this photo to Vrbo, and you won't get that error on your Vrbo listing. Similarly, this photo, because it's the full floor layout, that would cause an error on Vrbo. This one being an area map would cause an error on Vrbo. So these are all photos that you would want to exclude from your Vrbo listing. This one with the QR code should be excluded as well. And like I said, double check the terms on the other listing sites because you may need to exclude it from Airbnb or certain other channels also. One thing to keep in mind is that while you cannot have any watermarks or text in your Vrbo photos or on Airbnb, you can typically include things in the photo as long as it's subtle. So for instance, if you have a TV in the photo, you could potentially put your the name of your property or your company on the TV screen, like you'll see in real estate listing photos sometimes. Another thing you might do is maybe you have a pulled back photo of the kitchen and on the counter you have your property guidebook or you have a business card or something. So if someone looks closely, they can notice that, but it's not obvious. It's very subtly done. That is generally okay. Oops. All right, so let me just review my notes here, make sure I'm not missing anything. I did want to show you all the listing quality analyzer. So after you upload your photos, generally anytime you make a change to the property, it's always a good idea to go to tools here and click on listing quality analyzer. And then you can choose the property that you're working on, or if you've worked on multiple properties, you can select all of them. That's totally fine. Today we were only working on Heaven on Earth, and I want to see for Airbnb and Vrbo if I'm going to get any errors or warnings on my photos. And so let's look at the photo related ones. So here we have an error on photo 15. It says that it's too small. It needs to be at least this resolution. So one thing I did forget to mention, when you're uploading your photos, you want to make sure that you're uploading the highest resolution that is available to you. And then one thing that's really cool is OwnerRez will push the highest resolution to the channel that channel will accept, because different channels will take different resolutions for photos. So upload the highest resolution that you have, and OwnerRez will make sure that the highest resolution possible is what is pushed to the channel. So let's take a look back at that photos area and take a look at photo 15. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the little info icon here, and that's going to open this photo in a new tab. And I can see on my computer screen, this photo actually looks fine. It's perfectly clear. So that tells me that even though that's not necessarily the best resolution, if it's the highest resolution available to me, I can go ahead and ignore this error because it does look good on my computer screen. So that's what we recommend checking on that. And then here you'll see that we're getting some warnings about photo captions. So that's good. And then here in the info section, we can see the recommended size. And here you, again, as long as those photos look good on your computer screen, you don't need to worry about that. If you have higher resolution available to you, go ahead and upload it. But if you've already uploaded the highest resolution that you have available, then you don't need to worry about this info item. All right, so hopefully that was a good overview. Our whole photos area of the properties was recently redesigned, which is why we wanted to do this webinar and show you all how to navigate that area, especially the uploading the photos. This is pretty new, it just came out in the last month or two. So I hope you all enjoy it and find it an improvement over the previous photos page. Let's go ahead and open it up for some questions now. So I'll give you all a couple minutes in the chat to post any questions that you have. There's also the Q&A tab up at the top, so you can put the questions there or in the chat. Either way, I will check that. Sean has a question about the floor plan photos being banned. Is that something new? So with Verbo, I don't think it's something new, but it's not something they've always enforced. So you may find that some photos are still being taken that don't necessarily fit with their guidelines anymore. And so you can go ahead and just keep that photo on there, and you will get an email letting you know that there's an error with your listing on Verbo. And when you get that email, you can open that Excel file and it'll show you like exactly which photo is causing the error. And at that point in time, you can go to whatever photo that is in your OwnerRez account, click on that pencil icon, and at that point you could hide it from Verbo. But if it's not causing any errors right now, there's not necessarily any need to exclude it. You could wait and see if they ever do error it. If they don't, then that's great. No problem with keeping that on there. Things like pictures, close-up pictures that show your website or any contact info, I would proactively remove those if you have them, because those can actually cause you to be delisted if they catch you with that. But other things like this, it's generally okay to just keep it on there, even if it doesn't closely follow their guidelines at the moment. All right, then Abby is asking, I heard that algorithms prefer that the photo file name should be descriptive versus the unique ID. Do you know anything about this? It would be a pain to rename and reload all of my pictures. I have not heard that. I do know that it's good to have captions, descriptive captions. I haven't heard anything about the specific file names. Doesn't mean that it's not out there. I just personally haven't heard that. But we do recommend having captions on every single photo and making those captions as descriptive as possible. All right, and then Atlanta is asking, I have one photo that I've deleted from my OwnerRez a couple months ago, but it's still showing as the main photo on that Verbo listing. All the other properties updated properly. I have forced sync multiple times. What happened with this one? I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell that without digging into your specific account, Atlanta. So actually, if you could just email our help desk, help@ownerrez.com, and let them know the specifics and what happened, we'd be happy to dig into what's going on with that property. All right, so Stephen is saying my photos are in Verbo but will not pull into OwnerRez. API is not set up yet. Okay, 24 properties worked, 22 properties of the 24 worked fine. Okay, so Steve, I would say if that importer is not working on Verbo, it has been hit and miss lately on what Verbo is allowing us to scrape from the Verbo listings. So if that scraping is not working, then I would say just go ahead and upload your photos directly into OwnerRez. That's the preferred method anyways, to ensure that we're getting the highest resolution. So if it's not importing, your best bet, even if it does import, really, you may even want to go back to those other 22 properties and use our photo uploader to upload the highest resolution files that you have. Because when we pull it off of Verbo, we're only getting whatever that maximum file size is that Verbo accepts. So go ahead and go to those properties in your OwnerRez account and upload those photos directly into OwnerRez. That will give you the best resolution to begin with. All right, and then thank you, Zach, for moving that question over from the chat. There was a question on any tips to change the resolution on errored photos. So really, there's not any way to increase the resolution size. If you have the original file, that's typically going to be the highest resolution you can get. So if your photographer sent you your photos, you want to use those files that the photographer sent you. Some photographers might send you what they call a full resolution and a web resolution size photo. Use the full resolution size photo when you upload it into OwnerRez. That's going to be your highest resolution one. I don't think there may be ways, I'm not sure, of increasing resolution, but I don't know for sure about that. Whatever the original file is, again, typically that's your highest resolution. That's the one that you want to upload. As photos get saved or uploaded to different places and then re-downloaded, the resolution typically degrades. So that's why you want to use that original file whenever you have access to it. And then Paula is asking if the rooms options on OwnerRez are the same as the options offered on Airbnb. I'm not sure on that. I would check in our support center. I don't know off the top of my head. I would have to look into it. I do think we have more room options in OwnerRez, but I can't answer that definitively. So I would check into our support articles and see. We should have that documented somewhere if that's the case. Why does the analyzer flag photos that are up to 2 to 3 times the size they're saying is the minimum? So our listing quality analyzer wants you to have the highest quality photos possible. So you might get some warnings about photos that look just fine on your computer, or in this case, an error. The listing quality analyzer, because we want you to have the highest quality photos possible, it is a little bit overly zealous, as we saw with this error, saying that the photo is too small, and it looks just fine on our computer. We know that we can go ahead and keep that photo. If you have a higher quality version of it, then great, replace it with a higher quality one. But if you don't, it's not anything that you need to stress over. Okay, so it looks like those are all of the questions. Let's see here. Oh, it looks like we might have one more question from John. I need to adjust photos every season. It would be great to have file storage under OwnerRez, as it would make it simpler to find pics. Any future plans for this? So John, actually, one thing that's really cool with our photo redesign is the ability to hide the photos. So what you could do now is have all your photos uploaded into OwnerRez, and you can use this hide feature to hide it from all the channels that you're listed on. You can hide it from OwnerRez, Vrbo, Airbnb. And then when the seasons change, you can go in and unhide those photos and then hide the photos from the previous season, if that makes sense. So that's kind of a very neat feature. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all so much for being here today and spending this time with me. Before we end, I did want to remind you all of some of our available support resources. So I already mentioned that you can email our help desk, help@ownerrez.com. We also have our support center, ownerrez.com/support. Within the support center, if you are logged into your OwnerRez account at the same time that you're in the support center, you can easily start a chat with our AI chatbot, Rezi. She is very knowledgeable, and you can often find the answers that you need right away when you just start a chat with her. And then, of course, we have our forums, ownerrez.com/forums. We also have our blog where you can stay up to date on all of our latest news, integrations, and the podcast from our founders, Paul W. and Chris Hines. Sorry, Paul Waldschmidt and Chris Hines. And then, of course, we have our webinars, ownerrez.com/webinars. So stay tuned there for future focus sessions, Q&A sessions, demo webinars, and more. Hope to see you all at the next one. And thanks again for being here today. Bye-bye.